Welcome back, John.
Good morning. Good morning.
So far, so good.
Yeah, and the weather looks like it's cooling off, which is nice.
Yeah, we've got a weird orange glow here.
Yeah, so there's the smoke really high aloft from the fires to the south. So our AQI is actually really good here at the moment, but there is smoke high up in the atmosphere.
All right. Yeah, it's a little very uh remembering of the smoky days.
From last year. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Google Docs is laggy on me again today. It's going to make that seems better. Hey, Jack. Hey, Ludmilla. Hey, Laurie, Tyler.
Hello.
The first item we need Mateusz, so let's wait. See if he joins in a bit. Oh, Nikita's not here either. This one, we were talking about this on in Tuesday's meeting, Lori, and we're wondering if you or Nikita wasn't there this week, right? Also, remember, so we know NetI instrumentation, our client instrumentation can't correlate correctly if HTTP pipelining is used because we can't link the request and response correctly. And so for others, our long-term desire is to not enable NetI instrumentation by default, but that will require instrumenting potentially more HTTP clients that use NetI under the hood. But we weren't remembering if that same issue, it seems like it would affect NetI server instrumentation also. Tyler, have you all run into this at all?
Sort of. I mean, I did make some changes to our NetI instrumentation a while back, but I think a lot of it just depends on how the pipelining is implemented. And in the extreme case, yes, I don't think there's a good way to solve it.
Yeah, I think it came up in the context of Ratpack instrumentation also. So if we were to remove the NetI server instrumentation by default, we would need to capture server spans in like Ratpack and Play, some others that rely on Netty currently that rely on the Netty server instrumentation. That's probably a longer term.
Yeah, it's really a shame. Netty is a nice point to be able to instrument. It's just that it's so difficult.
Yeah, and it seems like that it's impossible in the pipelining scenario because there's just no linking like at that. It's so low level, almost like a socket library at that point. There's no way to correlate. Cool. Still waiting to see if Mateusz and Nikita show up for a couple topics. Does anybody have topics they want? Oh, we had it down. Got it. John, I'm gonna bump your topic up.
Yeah, so in my Android work, I'm trying to figure out how to do context propagation into OKHTTP async calls and trying to figure out how to make that work. So I've been pouring through OKHTTP APIs. And it looks like they have a dispatcher API that you can override that allows a custom executor service. So maybe there's a way to do that, like just have the context propagation at the executive service level. Do we have library instrumentation for executor services? There's something somewhere, but I can't remember where it is.
Not for executor service, but
There's something in Java, like there's an extension in the regular Java repo, I think.
okay, HTTP 3.
Yeah, I think there's a way to run the context on a specific executor. I remember Anurag adding those methods.
Yeah, yeah, there's something like that. I need to dig it up.
So does the existing OKHTTP3 library instrumentation not work for you?
It doesn't, well, it doesn't context, like if I'm doing manual, I'm writing all manual instrumentation, right? So I need to get the context from the main thread propagated into the async, whatever the executor that's dispatching the actual HTTP calls.
Oh.
And the library instrumentation doesn't handle any of that kind of thing. Maybe it should provide a dispatcher that will do that. That might be a handy bit, and as opposed, and in addition to the interceptor. But that is one thing that it doesn't do out of the box at the moment. So anyway,
I think a lot of the other library instrumentations have the same problem.
Yeah.
But Armyria.
Yeah, so there is a context executive service. So maybe it may be something that we should provide as a part of the library instrumentation, even though like a custom dispatcher that can be used. Ken just posted a link to the context executive service that we might just be able to hook up very easily for at least for OKHTTP. So anyway, I'll play around with it and maybe put in a PR to add that to the library.
Yeah, you might also look at the Ratpack library instrumentation. I think it's still in open PR. Oh no, it's merged. That Anurag just wrote the Ratpack library instrumentation, and he dealt with some of that threading propagation also.
I believe that the Ratpack instrumentation is only for the HTTP server, not the client.
Okay. Does this, it's something like this. I think he hooked into the Ratpack threading mechanism to propagate context. So it may be, but yeah, I think it's it sounds like a common problem for library instrumentation. See, we've got Mateusz. So let's go.
Sorry, I was a bit late.
No worries. Let's chat about suppressing similar instrumentations.
Yeah. Can I explain the current state of things? And
Yeah.
Trust, can you open it up? My computer is acting weird today. It's very slow, so I cannot really navigate or show anything.
Sure.
Thank you.
Maybe you could start with a short overview for folks who aren't up to speed on this.
Yeah, basically the problem I'm solving, and it seems it's a common problem for in many cases, that in general, we can have multiple layers of the same instrumentation, let's say HTTP. When multiple HTTP clients are instrumented, then they use each other. In my case, I'm also writing some with programmatic instrumentation in Azure SDK libraries, and it like duplicates with the auto instrumentation. I'm keeping aside reasons why we do this. Believe me, we have them. So basically the idea is that, okay, let's say we have a database instrumentation, and then database works over HTTP, and both of these layers could be interesting to customers. Again, let's leave aside questions whether we should just have one or multiple of them, but let's agree it could be interesting, and the configuration is not really part of this idea. But then two HTTP layers have no interest to customers, most likely, because they probably are the same. And then underneath, maybe there is some extra layer, like maybe DNS or whatever, and it's different. It's not HTTP. So it's also could be interesting to customers. So basically the idea is to enable these different layers, but suppress same layers. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so then I've sent a PR, and thank you all for your comments and suggestions. It makes a lot of sense. So what they came up with is basically the instrumentation type thing that owns a strategy how to suppress different spans. So Trask, if you open it, yeah. Yeah, so basically currently it's limited to a few types that we know that we have semantic conventions for. Nothing stops us from adding more, and nothing stops us from allowing instrumenters to declare their own types, but I don't have this functionality now. So basically we have HTTP database messaging RPC. Generic is the one that we never suppress. This is like internal spans, or like, let's say it's a mixed type of instrumentation. We don't know what is it. Probably it's very custom. So we are not going to suppress it. And none, it's actually a current behavior. It's suppressing all of client spans. And if we look into internal span, the line 17, and server or consumer span, line 18, the first one we never suppress. The server span we suppress all the server span if they're nested. We can have a separate thing for consumer, but well, that's easy to change. So, and then the instrumenter class now, it just, okay, so another interesting piece here. So that instead of client span, server span, and consumer span, I created this ugly suppressing span wrapper that does exactly the same. It can store span in the context under the key, which is either server or consumer or the client with certain type. And then the instrumenter class, instead of calling into client server and consumer span, it just calls into instrumentation type. So this is the mechanics. I have some open questions that I'm not sure about. Do you folks have any questions before I get there?
I looked over it yesterday. It made sense in the current state to me. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so the open questions are, the first one is basically, how do we configure this instrumentation type? So I have currently two different ways. First one is explicit. Any instrumenter can say, optionally, if they want to provide instrumentation type. Or if users enable this through system property, then instrumenter builder attempts to figure it out based on the extractor, the attribute extractor type. So I think I would like to have just one way and avoid the magic here because it's a bit too magical. So either it's fully magical or it's not magical at all. But currently it's both. So, and I'm looking for suggestions. What would we prefer here? But then I want every instrumenter to set instrumentation type, because if some of them do and some of them don't, it will be problematic.
Couldn't we default to the generic one or to the none one?
Yeah, we can default, but then it will create funny side effects, right? Because if instrumenter does not opt in, they probably should preserve current behavior, which means they should be suppressed if they are nested, regardless of the specific type. But then it would require other instrumenters who opt in to like support both the old behavior and new behavior. Otherwise, it will be just the terrible mixture of suppressing and not suppressing. Does it make sense?
Kind of. So one more question. What about the system property then? I mean, you mentioned configuring between old and new behavior with some sort of property or configuration. So I initially thought that you would just have like two modes of operation. Like the first one is all clients are the same, so the current behavior, and the new one is with those types or labels that you have different, essentially different types for DB clients, HTTP clients, and so on. So wasn't this behavior chosen by the system property?
Yeah, so by default, like if instrumenter does not opt in, they currently follow they follow current behavior, right? Suppress all nested client spans. Then if users decide to opt in into the feature, then we are trying to figure out instrumenter type based on the extractors, attribute extractors. Then instrumenter can opt in And then regardless of user choice, they will, oh, this is a problem, I guess. So if this is disabled, then with instrumenter opt-in, then we should still preserve the current behavior. But I will fix it. It's a good point.
So
I
I
think-
oh good. What was that, Matej?
No, I think I got it.
I liked the detection from the attribute extractors, since people have to add these anyway. And it seems like if they're using HTTP attribute extractors, it's an easy way for us to know that it's HTTP. There was, I know in your prototype, it only handled the case where there's a single attribute extractor, but we could extend that to multiple and define a precedence of maybe databases, messaging is, I don't know, greater than database is greater than HTTP, something like that.
Yeah, we can do this. At the same time, I think that at least in my mental model, if instrumentation does multiple attributes on the same span, then probably it's something very custom. But you tell me if it's the case in our in Java instrumentation.
I don't think we have any.
I don't think we have. There's usually just one type for instrumentation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there are multiple attribute extractors, but just one of these special types. And then sometimes an instrumentation has an additional attribute extractor for something else.
Oh, I see. Interesting. I'll look for it. That's a good feedback. And it sounds reasonable to start with magical way and just one instrument, one extractor. And if we will feel a need for explicit configuration, we can always set it later. It doesn't seem like it could be a breaking change.
Cool. Did you have any other open questions?
Yeah, I have a big one. I've been trying to make it work across the repo and pass test, and what I found that basically we have one important case where we have a mixture of instrumenters and tracers. It's the WISPAN annotation. And am I right that WISPAN is moving to instrumenters?
I think we've already had a PR. I don't remember if it was matched or not, but yeah, it's definitely moving to instrumenter.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, and it sounds like it's pretty soon. As I think like currently it still works for tracers, at least a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And this one, the first one, it sounds like it's Spring Boot. It's not the
You're
full
right.
thing.
You're right. Yeah, this was a special case. Yeah, it's not the whole.
I think there's an open one with OpenTelemetry in there. Like OpenTelemetry API to Instrumenter API, something like. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
This one.
Oh, nice. It's approved.
Cool. Yeah, I'll ping Justin to wrap up the last couple comments and we will get that merged.
Nice. So probably to resolve all my issues, but basically, is it the fair assumption that we don't need to touch tracers here. We can keep them as they are and let them die. And we don't want to onboard them onto instrumentation type.
I'm fine with not, yeah, yes, totally agree.
Okay, so I'll check if this with span PR solves all my issues, and I'll see if I can keep tracers away from this change.
Yeah, the only downside is you won't see as many examples at this point, since we are still have 79 to go to convert. But yeah, that's the
Yeah,
only downside. It's gonna die.
Yeah, I think it's good enough.
Cool.
Cool.
Any other?
No. That's it from my side. Thank you. Really appreciate your help.
I have one, let's say, open concern. We've been wanting to bridge the server client span context keys between the agent and the application. So if we're replacing that, I probably would like for it to be as easily instrumentable as possible, because up till now, all those context keys were basically static fields in some classes. So it was very easy to obtain them and compare which one is the same on the agent and on the application. And if we're making them, I don't know, values in the map or instance fields, and the suppressing span wrappers instances can be dynamic, then it will be much more difficult to determine which one is which one. So I know it looks kind of ugly that when you have this private static final key and everything in every class, but it really makes our life easier when it comes to instrumentation later.
Yeah, it seems currently in the instrumentation type, all the instances are public static, and the instrumentation type is also public. So, and gets this suppressing wrapper. So we can expose it, but I think I had to expose it, but I wanted to hide it. So but basically what you're saying, that we want to obtain the context key for the certain instrumentation type, right?
Yeah, so one way or another, the context keys should be available in a static context. So they can be a field of object that is static. That should be fine too, I guess. But yeah, that's just one thing to remember.
Mm-hmm.
If we make this too complicated or too dynamic, then it will be impossible to instrument it later.
I think currently it's totally doable. So, and it doesn't seem too hard. So it would be like instrumentation type.http get context key, something like that. I can do this.
Okay, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And for context for other folks, what we're talking about, the bridging is this picture where if the user brings their own, say that brings our instrumented libraries or the instrumenter API in their app, and internally in the agent, we're using it also, we bridge this to avoid version conflicts. And so this is kind of a tricky component. And so to make these context keys, we already bridged the OpenTelemetry API, but this is like a new concept. So we want to bridge that also. All right. We got Nikita. You had a item.
Yeah, it just call for feedback. I know some people are interested in this topic about filtering out spans based on URLs. So please read the comment, read the questions, and share your opinions.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting one also because we were sort of discussing if we would always capture, currently all our instrumentation captures HTTP URL. We actually capture all of these, but there's some redundancy here. And
we cannot capture HTTP target. I will be very surprised if we capture that. We can capture route, but we cannot capture target.
why not?
Because by definition, HTTP target is essentially what was in that HTTP request on the line, like what was requested. I don't know any Java framework that provides such low-level detail. It's all everything that Java provides is already somehow post-processed. It's not what was in HTTP like request on the wire, and target is exactly that by semantic convention.
Yeah, but it might be the only reason I think it's an open question to me at least is that it might be cheaper to reconstruct the target from the path plus query string if we also have these versus reconstructing the whole HTTP URL if we're given the pieces.
Okay, that may be a good point.
It does
So,
cause, yeah, go ahead.
Capturing HTTP URL is actually certainly not ideal because in the majority of cases, well, in a lot of cases, we reconstruct URL actually from the pieces. Some libraries provide the whole URL, but at least half of them provide just pieces. And so we create new URL, which quite expensive operation anyway. And then for that sampler, for example, it may be that we actually don't want the URL, and then we take that URL from the span from the attribute which is already string. So we create URL on our instrumentation from the pieces. We convert that to string. Then in sampler we have to again convert that string to URL and then get a path section from that, which is like completely waste of resources. So yeah.
Yeah, Anurag had outlined a couple of just a few options if people are also interested in that discussion.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just a small note is that pull request is in contrib. So it probably, even if it gets approved and merged, it will not be readily usable in auto instrumentation because there will be no way to actually configure that for the end user. So that's a totally separate question.
Extension. Just to go ahead.
Yeah, so are you talking about that sampler in extension?
Oh, I mean, like somebody could build an extension with that. If they
Yeah,
wanted
so the question is, so that sampler has to have a delegate sampler to delegate to when there is no HTTP URL for the span. And how you to configure that URL via environment variables, nobody knows. how you configure matching URLs via environment variables, nobody knows. So, and we can do that in OpenTelemetry repo without any thought of standardization data across languages. And well, that will take time.
Was there a spec? Oh, did you link to the spec issue over here already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
even in spec, so I assume it's quite easy to provide a specification pull request for new sampler, like URL-based sampler. That's like half of the job. But the next question again, how auto instrumentation users will be able to configure that? Not SDK users, it's easy for them, but auto instrumentation users who cannot create new URL sampler. Here's my patterns, here the delegate, and that's it. So external configuration is one big can of worms.
Would it work as an extension, or are you saying that it would be problematic as using the dumping that into an extension also?
So you can add that into runtime via extension. But again, that sampler's configuration is application specific. For this application, I want to ignore these URLs. For that application, I want to ignore those URLs. Now, if we are talking about auto instrumentation, which means that only operator can configure them, and how exactly? Which environment variable in which format should I specify? And
yeah, so it would be an application specific Java agent extension.
yeah, that's one way to, yeah.
Cool. I wanted to call out the extension stuff because I started exploring this for a customer also, and I'm very thankful that you started building this out. I think it is very handy. Any other topics that folks had, and then I can just do brief updates.
Yeah, I had a small one. Ron is joining, who's working on the logging implementation. So he just wanted to give a little update, and I don't know if he's met y'all. So, but yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All
so
you, Ron.
first of all, I'm fine, John. First of all, hello everybody. It's my first meeting here. A bit excited, and also the first real open source project I'm working with, so it's a lot to learn and catch up to. So basically we are working on the logging SDK. We are writing, essentially we are doing a POC for Log4j logging instrumentation. So currently we are writing, we are actually implementing the log exporter in the Java library. And that's it. We kind of started to work on it not too long ago. So there are not too many new stuff. We're trying to get familiar with the data objects, the protobuf objects, and currently I'm implementing something called in the span and the metrics. They have a span and metric adapter that adapts like the metric data and the span data to the protobuf and like serialize data to a protobuf object. So I'm currently working on that, and that's it. I guess with time I will catch up and understand more and more, because I see there are a lot of stuff that I need to get familiar with here.
Jason Plum, take note.
I mean, what do you mean take note?
I mean, you've done this in our Splunk distro, right? So
Yeah, so in our last week's SIG, I put a couple of links to some of the logging work, and hopefully that's been shared. Have you seen those links? Yeah, okay.
I sent them to Ron.
Yeah.
Great, yeah. And I mean, I think the main takeaway there is just to ensure that we have some separation between the protobuf objects and our true domain objects.
Yeah,
because protobuf.
True. So I will ask Jonah again for those links or try to see the reference. And yeah, there are a bit, it looks like some of the protobuf objects are named the same as the source objects. For example, I saw, I think log record might be one that is like also in protobuf in there. So I need to kind of get an understanding of what's going on there. And also something that I saw is that the current log record object does not expose or hold the resource and the instrumentation library info. So I might need to understand if that's something we need to head there for the whole like conversion to resource logs object. But we just started to work on it, so it's like currently just for me at least, it's just like to understand the environment, kind of like map in my head what's going on there.
awesome. This is good stuff. Thanks for working on it. Thanks for picking it up.
Yeah, thank you very much for the being nice and accepting of new people.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only thing that I just want to reiterate is I think we really want to make sure that our SDK, the API that we expose in our SDK, is as simple as we can make it, and not just kind of exposing the entire protobuf API just because it's there. Like, I think we want to have something that's a little bit more Java centric and simple, if at all possible. So that's my main goal, is to make it something like, I know that like the big thing is, of course, the log message body in the protobuf supports arbitrary objects essentially, and I don't think there's any need for that in the Java, in any of the Java logging appenders that would need to be written. Like, string is good enough for the message body. So that's kind of the only thing that I know with the current data model that I think I definitely want to change. So, and I've commented on that multiple times. I just want to reiterate it because it's sometimes easy to forget.
Yeah, so which exact data model are you talking about? The log record, the resource logs, or am I missing something?
So I'm trying to remember what the API looks like in the current SDK. Has some code in it. Let me hold please. Let's look up something real quick. What do we have? We have a log record, right? Yeah. So log record right now, the body is this any value thing. And I would like the body to just be a string and not expose any value from the protobuf. So that's the only significant change that I can see around log record at the moment.
Yeah. One thing specifically about the log record is, as I just mentioned before, I saw that if I understand correctly, you can say sort of equivalent to the log record in the metric and span is the span data and the metric data. And there I saw that they have, when they do the conversion to the protobuf object, they actually export like extract the get resource and get the instrumentation library info, which currently we do not have in the log record. So I'm just trying to understand if it's something that I need to add. Currently, I did like edit it there, but I'm just playing around and trying to see. So there are a lot of new things there. So, but just like to put it out there, so maybe the next time I'll have more like knowledge or better question to ask about that.
Yeah, Jason, what did you, I don't remember what you ended up doing with the instrumentation library and the resource. Do you?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now to try and remember too. So there's a protobuf object called resource logs. And
Yeah.
we have an adapter. We have a resource logs adapter. And so we're pulling the resource information out of, I don't remember. It's in that same package though. Look at the resource logs adapter as maybe a good starting point.
And that's in
The resource logs adapter. Okay, let's see.
that's in the Splunk code base though, right?
Correct.
Okay. So probably do not have access for that.
No, you do. Yeah, Trask is opening it right now.
It's all open source. So, and this is stuff we are intending to contribute. We just haven't. You're doing the work for us of contributing it apparently.
I guess you could say you will be able to say that when there is something that is actually like
of course
feasible. But yeah, I'm attempting to do that.
So it looks like it looks like the attributes are passed in, but there's this convert resource attributes that takes in a resource. So it's like it happens when the thing is constructed, which is part.
Does our log entry have the resource in it?
It does not. No.
Oh.
And that was, I think that's what Ron was talking about.
But where does that resource come from? Though?
Okay, so if you look at the logs exporter builder.
Oh, so it happens at exporter creation time.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. So the idea is you're building your exporter and you would get a handle to the SDK's resource.
Yeah, Trask, sorry, it's not the OTLP one. It's a class called logs exporter builder, which is in a different package.
Under profiler?
It's in the profiler code.
Yeah.
So this may be specific to the profiler stuff at the moment.
Yep.
So Ron, basically, yes, we need to solve that problem. I don't
Yeah.
think we necessarily have a good answer at the moment.
Yeah. So is it something that? By the way, I'm not familiar with the Splunk repository, but is it?
Yeah, we definitely wanted an OpenTelemetry Java. We only have it.
Yeah, but
we only
again,
have it in ours as an interim step.